Hey guys, it's Wes from the Midnight Chronicles. I hope you all had a stress-free day and are ready to get sleepy. Before we begin, take a slow, deep breath, settle into a comfortable position, and allow yourself to truly relax. Let your shoulders drop, your hands rest lightly, and your eyes grow heavy as you prepare for a calm, peaceful night. If you enjoy this journey along the Silk Road, consider subscribing to follow along, so that each night you can drift into stories crafted to soothe, entertain, and carry you gently towards sleep. Tonight, we follow a trader and his caravan along dusty roads, through sun-drenched deserts, across gentle rivers, past sleepy villages, and into the whispering history of silk, trade, and quiet adventure. Allow your mind to settle as we step into a world of shimmer, color, and stories stretched across time. The Silk Road unfolded beneath the soft morning sun, a ribbon of stone and dust stretching endlessly into the horizon. Bolts of silk gleamed atop the camels' broad backs, reflecting blues like the morning sky, reds like fading embers, golds that flickered faintly with every gentle sway of the animals. The trader adjusted his scarf, feeling its soft fabric brush lightly against his cheek, and glanced at his camel, who blinked slowly and exhaled a warm puff of air, as if acknowledging the day ahead. "Do not worry," he murmured. "We will survive, and perhaps even thrive today." The camel swayed lazily, completely indifferent to the human chatter, as though measuring time in steps, shadows, and sunlight rather than urgency. The caravan moved steadily, camels stepping with deliberate care, their padded hooves pressing into compacted stone and soft sand, creating a subtle rhythm that echoed across the desert floor. Occasionally, a distant bell rang from a village, a soft, lazy peal that drifted across the sands like a note in a gentle song. The trader allowed a faint smile, thinking of merchants far away inspecting his wares, imagining them marveling at the shimmer of the silks and the richness of the colors. If only they could see the journey it took to arrive here. He whispered to himself. Somewhere overhead, a small flock of birds arched gracefully against the pale blue sky, their wings catching sunlight, as if scattering tiny fragments of light across the caravan's path. The morning passed, with quiet rhythm, camels swaying, hooves clinking against straps and packs, wind brushing the silk and creating subtle ripples across its surface. Each bolt told a story, woven into existence in distant cities, carried across miles by patient weavers and meticulous traders. The trader paused beneath a lone tree, stretching his legs with a grace that came from years of traversing deserts and mountains, letting his eyes roam over the fabrics, imagining the hands that had created them, the marketplaces that had seen them, and the merchants who might one day handle them. A small grin crossed his face as he thought of distant townspeople, examining the cloth, and wondering how it had survived such a long, arduous journey intact. The path grew slightly steeper, dunes and jagged stones creating subtle shadows that shifted with the sun's movement. The trader noticed the faint scent of cumin and roasted nuts carried by the breeze, a reminder of human life spread across this vast landscape. merchants tending to goods, children chasing goats, the quiet clatter of distant markets. Camels nudged one another gently, emitting soft grunts that punctuated the steady rhythm of travel. The trader spoke softly to the lead camel. "Do keep pace, or I may have to file a formal complaint with the Desert Council of Camels." And the camel blinked, indifferent but perfectly obedient, its patience seeming infinite. Hours passed with the sun climbing higher, dust dancing lightly in warm beams, and the trader marveled at how even in the stillness, the desert thrummed with life. Shadows stretched across the dunes, rippling like water across sand, and he allowed his mind to wander, thinking of past journeys, imagining those yet to come, and savouring the quiet beauty of this road. Each bolt of silk shimmered, the threads alive with history, reflecting light in a way that seemed almost magical, reminding him that the journey itself was as precious as the goods he carried. The camels plodded steadily, the wind whispered through fabrics, and the trader felt the first true sense of serenity for the day, content in the rhythm, the warmth, and the gentle unfolding of time along the Silk Road. The afternoon light softened as the caravan curved toward a region where the land rose in gentle rolling shapes, like waves frozen in sand. The trader adjusted the strap of a crate and glanced toward the horizon, where faint outlines of distant hills shimmered under the heat. The world seemed to breathe in slow motion here, each gust of wind lifting grains of dust into small spirals that drifted lazily before settling again. It was a peaceful sight, but there was a subtle shift in the air, a quiet tightening beneath the calm, as though the land itself was preparing to speak in a lower, more thoughtful tone. A few camels began to huff and grumble, their steps slightly less synchronized, as if they sensed the terrain becoming uneven. Now, the trader whispered, patting the nearest camel's neck. "The hills are not conspiring against you." The camel offered a deep, unimpressed grunt, which the trader interpreted as, "I remain skeptical." He chuckled softly and continued forward, letting the rhythm of the hooves pull him back into focus. The path wound through scattered stones and tufts of hardy shrubs, their leaves a dusty green that somehow managed to look both tired and stubbornly alive. Wind rustled through them, producing a dry whisper that mingled with the creaking of wooden crates and the faint chiming of metal buckles. The trader liked this kind of sound, thin, humble, but grounding. It reminded him that even in vast emptiness, small things had their place and song. As they progressed deeper into the valley, the walls of earth and stone edged closer together, not dramatically, just a little at a time, almost politely, yet enough for the trader to notice the soft compression of the landscape. He wasn't alarmed, but he felt an instinctive alertness settle into his posture, like a traveller straightening his cloak before entering unfamiliar terrain. The silence grew more concentrated too, stretching between footsteps like fabric pulled gently but firmly across a frame. Up ahead, Jalun, the caravan master, raised a hand to signal a slower pace. His weathered face turned slightly, scanning the sloping ridges. "The wind quiets in this stretch," he murmured, "and sound carries differently. Stay aware." His voice held no fear, just experience, the kind born from decades of listening to the desert, the way one might listen to a trusted advisor. The trader nodded, letting his eyes wander across the ridgelines. A few birds perched there, dark silhouettes against bright stone, their heads tilting, as though observing the caravan with calm, measured curiosity. Their presence reassured him. Birds tended to vanish quickly in places where trouble brewed. Still, the trader noticed their stillness, their unusually focused stare. Perhaps they were simply waiting for the evening wind, or perhaps they were intrigued by the flash of silk catching sunlight. A faint breeze stirred, carrying with it the scent of distant smoke. Herbs, likely, from a cooking fire somewhere beyond the hills. The trader inhaled deeply. It reminded him of warm meals in roadside inns, chickpea stews, grilled flatbread, and the comfortable chatter of travellers comparing routes and bargaining triumphs. "We should pass a village soon," he said, mostly to himself. A bowl of stew would be a fine reward for patience. But even as he spoke, he noticed the shadows shifting with a quiet deliberation, sliding longer across the narrowing path. The sun dipped slightly behind a ridge, dimming the vibrant colours of the silk until they glowed with a softer, more muted sheen. The trader reached out and touched one of the bolts, feeling its familiar smoothness beneath his fingertips. The silk always felt steady, unchanging, even when the landscape hinted at transition. Jalan called back. "Another hour until we reach an open plain. The ground will be wide enough to rest and reorganize the packs." His calm tone eased the subtle tension coiling through the caravan, and the camels responded with softened steps, as though reassured. Still, the trader kept his gaze moving, up the ridges, down the path, across the silks that swayed with every shift of the camel's gait. The air wasn't heavy, just expectant, the kind of atmosphere where something might happen, not necessarily something bad, but something that would nudge the journey into a new rhythm. He adjusted his scarf once more, letting it fall comfortably against his neck. "Whatever the road brings," he whispered, "we shall meet it with grace, and hopefully with minimal camel drama." The nearest camel snorted loudly, as if offended by the implication. The trader smiled. Even in a narrowing valley with quiet air and watchful cliffs, small humour grounded him. The journey continued, steady and thoughtful, as the Silk Road guided them toward whatever waited beyond the next bend. The valley opened gradually, broad and sloping. The earth stretched like soft waves frozen in time. Aaron allowed himself a small sigh. After the long, narrowing cliffs, the expanse felt like a quiet exhale across the landscape. The camels moved steadily, their hooves pressing into the warm dust, each step echoing a subtle rhythm that reminded him of the careful march of history itself. The sunlight glinted off the bolts of silk, turning them into little flickers of colour that danced with each sway, catching eyes like distant stars. Yet even in the openness, Jalan slowed the caravan, raising a hand with 2 fingers pointed upward. His eyes, weathered and discerning, traced the gentle rise ahead. 3 figures had emerged on the crest, standing beside a solitary, sun-bleached cart. At first glance, they could have been ordinary travelers, but something in their stillness spoke of deliberate presence, not aggressive, but calculating. The air seemed to stretch thinner around them, subtle, yet unmistakable. Aaron felt the caravan's quiet tension ripple outward. Not fear. No, this was different. Awareness sharpened, like a gentle wind before a storm that wasn't coming in fury, but in precision. Jalan steered closer. "We may have company," he said in his calm, steady tone. "Observe, follow my lead, and keep your wits." "Robbers?" Aaron asked, voice barely above the soft desert breeze. "Most likely," Jalan replied. "But the courteous sort, if we're lucky." The 3 figures straightened. One, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His scarf wrapped neatly around his face, leaving only keen, measured eyes visible. "Peace to you, travelers," he said smoothly, voice warm and deliberate. "This road is busy, and we ensure it remains so, peacefully." Jalan inclined his head. "Peace is welcome," he said. "We value calm passage." The scarfed man's eyes flicked toward the camels, then to the silk. "Peace requires a small token, a modest tribute, something that acknowledges our presence without interrupting your journey." Aaron drew a quiet breath, recalling tales of bandits along the Silk Road, some threatening, some creative in their methods, most simply opportunistic. "And what is the price of polite passage?" he asked softly. The man tilted his head, thoughtful. 2 bolts of silk, any colour. "We do not quarrel over shade." Aaron nodded, selecting a deep indigo and a warm, muted gold. He handed them with both hands, careful not to jostle the precious fabric. The leader's gloved fingers closed over the bolts with deliberate care. "A fine choice," he said. And Aaron felt a small, almost imperceptible nod of approval in the man's posture. "May your journey continue without incident." "And may your next toll be paid with better jokes," Aaron said, letting the corner of his lips lift. The second robber chuckled, a soft, human sound that shifted the tension like a breeze over dunes. The leader exhaled, shoulders loosening. "Then you may pass freely next time," he replied. His voice carried no threat, merely acknowledgement of civility. Jalan guided the caravan forward, each step steady. The camels seemed to sense the easing of the moment, relaxing into their gentle rhythm. Dust swirled lazily, catching sunlight like flecks of gold, and the silk rippled in response, glimmering softly, a quiet celebration of survival and good judgment. Aaron adjusted his scarf. "That could have gone worse," he murmured, letting a small smile curve his lips. "Far worse." Jalun's eyes twinkled faintly. "It often does," he said. "But politeness travels farther than steel." The caravan moved onward again, the plain wide before them, open and reassuring. The robbers retreated behind the gentle rise, their figures blending into the earth as though they had never been there. For a brief moment, the only sounds were the rhythmic plodding of camels, the soft sway of silk, and the whisper of wind over sun-warmed dust. Aaron exhaled fully. The tension of encounter melted into calm awareness. Every movement, every glance, Every soft breath of the desert felt meaningful, a reminder that even along a road lined with uncertainty, the journey itself held beauty, subtle humor, and lessons in observation. The Silk Road stretched ahead, patient and vast, promising more moments like this, delicate, intricate, and alive with stories waiting to unfold. The plain stretched wide, sun beginning to lower into soft, honeyed tones, turning the earth into muted gold and copper. The caravan moved steadily, camels plodding in quiet rhythm, each step stirring tiny clouds of dust that sparkled faintly in the light. Aaron's eyes followed the horizon, where gentle hills undulated like waves frozen in amber, and he felt the steady calm of the open land wrap around him after the brief tension of the encounter. Jalan guided the caravan with practiced ease, occasionally glancing back with a soft smile, his posture relaxed but attentive. "Soon we will find water," he said, voice calm and certain, "and then a place to rest before night fully settles." The camels seemed to sense the promise, stepping more confidently, their ears flicking at distant sounds. Birds calling, a soft rustle of wind over scrub. Aaron allowed himself a moment to appreciate the quiet. The air carried faint scents of herbs from distant villages, mingled with the warm earth and sun-baked dust. He inhaled deeply, letting the gentle mix of aromas settle in his chest. The silk rippled softly against the animal's sides, catching what little sunlight remained and shimmering with a subtle glow, reminding him of distant markets, of people inspecting these same fabrics long before he had carried them. Each bolt seemed alive with history, a story within a story, and he smiled at the thought that they had survived desert, wind, and now polite robbers. As the caravan continued, Aaron noticed how the shadows stretched longer, climbing the gentle slopes like slow fingers reaching across the plain. The light shifted, painting the landscape in warm gradients, and even the smallest rocks seemed to hold a quiet significance in the new glow. Camels nudged one another gently, small grunts punctuating the otherwise soft rhythm of hooves against sand. The caravan moved like a living organism, each part attentive to the other, a quiet orchestra in motion. Ahead, a thin ribbon of smoke rose from a distant cluster of trees, likely the evening fires of a resting village. Jalan's eyes crinkled with approval. "Water and warmth," he said softly. "And perhaps food that doesn't travel in silk." The words carried light humor, drawing a faint chuckle from Aaron, even amid long journeys and fleeting tensions. There was room for small laughter, a reminder that the world held kindness alongside unpredictability. The trader allowed his mind to wander gently. He imagined villagers leaning over low fences, curious about the exotic fabrics, their hands brushing the silks with wonder. Perhaps children played nearby, weaving sticks through one another as they ran in circles, while elders commented on the colours and patterns, giving them names only known in those parts. Even the smallest town could hold rich tales, he thought, and each encounter added layers to the journey, subtle but meaningful. The caravan slowed as Jalon guided it toward a shallow stream meandering across the plain, its surface catching the fading sunlight in tiny flashes. Camels knelt gracefully to drink, their heads lowering and rising in quiet rhythm. The sound of water, gentle and steady, was like a balm after the day's long march, and the soft rustle of silk alongside it made the moment feel almost ceremonial. Aaron dipped a small cloth into the stream, letting cool water refresh his hands and face, a tiny luxury that reminded him how little comforts could feel like treasures. Evening settled slowly, a gentle blanket of colour and warmth. The shadows deepened, softening the contours of the land. The camels rested at last, their bodies leaning into the familiar weight of packs and fabric. Irene arranged the silk carefully, ensuring that the folds stayed neat, the edges protected. He glanced at Jalon, who nodded with satisfaction, and felt the quiet pride of both survival and stewardship. Aaron exhaled fully, letting the calm of the evening soak in. The Silk Road had offered tension, subtle humour, history, and beauty. And tomorrow, as it always did, it would offer more. He felt his body soften, his mind drift gently, and allowed the rhythm of the road, the camels, the wind, and the shimmering silk to carry him toward rest. The journey was far from over, yet in this moment, everything aligned into quiet perfection. A pause in time along the ancient ribbon of stone, dust, and story. Night settled over the plains with slow, deliberate softness, like a great velvet curtain being drawn across the sky. The last traces of daylight thinned into pale strands of gold before slipping beneath the horizon, leaving behind a deepening blue that shimmered with early stars. Aaron watched as the first few points of light emerged overhead, steady and patient, as though they had been waiting all day for their moment to glow. Jalon struck a small fire, coaxing tiny flames to life with practiced gentle motions that barely disturbed the quiet. The camp formed naturally, camels kneeling in a loose circle, their shadows long and softened by firelight, the silk bundles arranged neatly nearby, glowing faintly in the warm, amber hue. Even the fabrics seemed to relax after the day's travel, their folds settling like sleeping petals. A soft breeze drifted through the plain, carrying distant scents of dry grass and faint traces of smoke from the hidden village they had passed. Aaron breathed deeply, letting the gentle air fill him, the warmth of the fire grounding him in the moment. Jalon handed Aaron a small clay cup filled with warm spiced tea. Its fragrance, honey, cinnamon, a touch of anise, rose in soft curls, comforting and familiar. For the night, Jalon said, sitting down with a slow, thoughtful ease, the desert may look empty, but after dark, it is full of stories. Aaron settled beside him, the warmth of the cup seeping into his hands, soothing the lingering tension from the long road and the earlier encounter with the drunken robbers. The fire cracked quietly, sending tiny sparks upward that drifted into nothing. The camels made low, sleepy sounds, shifting just enough to find comfortable positions. Their shapes blended into the night, tall, gentle silhouettes swaying slightly with each slow breath. Aaron found the rhythm of their breathing strangely calming, almost like a lullaby laid across the plains. The Silk Road always changed. Robbers one day, stillness the next. But its nights held a steady kind of peace, as if the world agreed to rest all at once. Jalun leaned back, hands braced against the cool earth. "My grandfather used to travel this same road," he said quietly. "He claimed the stars here speak more clearly than anywhere else in the world." Arin glanced upward. The sky was opening fully now, thousands of stars shimmering like grains of silver scattered across velvet. They pulsed softly, not in brightness, but in presence, as though acknowledging the travellers below. There was something ancient about the way they hung, motionless above the path, silent watchers of countless caravans, countless nights. "What did he say they spoke about?" Arin asked. "Patience," Jalun replied, "and the importance of moving slowly enough to notice the world still turning." He took a sip of his tea, the firelight catching in his eyes. "Most travellers try to outrun the road, but the road never rushes. It simply exists." Arin considered that. The early attention, the dusty miles, the weight of the silk, none of it felt heavy now. Instead, each moment of the journey felt like a bead on a long string, connected, meaningful, and quietly important. The breeze shifted, brushing cool air across their faces. The grass rustled softly, as though whispering secrets in a language older than the traders themselves. Arin wrapped his scarf loosely around his shoulders, more for comfort than warmth. The fire crackled again, small flames moving lazily, casting patterns across the silk bundles. Their shimmering surfaces seemed almost alive, reflecting tiny stars within their threads. Arin traced a finger along one bolt, feeling the smoothness, and remembering the weaver who had handed it to him with such care. It felt good to know it had survived another day. Jalun stood slowly, stretching with a quiet groan of contentment. "We rise early tomorrow," he said. "The plains are gentle, but the next stretch brings stone cliffs, beautiful, but demanding." Arin nodded, finishing the last of his tea. The warmth settled into him, loosening every lingering tightness in his shoulders. He felt heavy in the pleasant way that comes before sleep, as though the road itself had tucked him in. The fire dimmed into a gentle glow, embers breathing like a sleeping heart. The night deepened, stars brightening, the world falling into a peaceful hush. Arin lay down near the silk bundles, the faint smell of dye and fabric mixing with cool night air. A camel shifted nearby, letting out a long, slow exhale that seemed almost like a sigh of reassurance. Arin closed his eyes, letting the calm wash through him. The day's worries drifted farther with each breath. Tomorrow would come with new sights, new challenges, new quiet joys. But tonight belonged to rest, to the stars, to the steady breathing of companions, and the warm memory of tea shared by firelight along the ancient silk road. The night deepened, the sky a broad canopy of stars that seemed to pulse softly in time with the desert's quiet rhythm. The fire had dwindled to glowing embers, and the camels rested, their bodies sinking into the soft dust with a slow, contented weight. Arin lay back against a neatly folded bolt of silk, the warmth of the day lingering in his muscles, and allowed his thoughts to drift freely along the thread of the journey. A gentle breeze swept across the plain, carrying faint scents of distant cooking fires and the earthy aroma of night-blooming herbs. It whispered through the camp, rustling the edges of the silk bundles so subtly that it sounded like soft laughter. Aaron closed his eyes, letting each breath synchronize with the rhythm of the wind, the distant murmur of camels, and the quiet crackle of remaining embers. There was a comfort in this constancy, a reassurance that despite the road's endlessness, some things endured. Yalun walked slowly among the resting animals, checking straps and adjusting packs. His movements were deliberate but unhurried, a small ceremony of care that spoke of decades spent on these roads. He paused near Aaron, crouching slightly to inspect a camel's blanket. Even the smallest oversight can ripple through a caravan, he murmured softly. A misplaced strap, a twisted rope, simple things can grow complicated quickly. Aaron nodded, appreciating the subtle wisdom hidden in the statement. The journey required attentiveness, patience, and a respect for small details, each one weaving into the larger story of travel and survival. Above them, stars gleamed brighter as the sky deepened to indigo, reflecting faintly in the folds of silk. The textiles shimmered under the minimal light, colours muted yet alive, recalling cities far to the east, where looms hummed in steady rhythm and hands moved deftly across threads. Aaron's mind wandered there, imagining distant marketplaces bustling with merchants, children laughing as they chased one another between stalls, elders examining fabrics with careful attention, and the soft melodies of daily life, rising in harmony with the sun. It was a world of quiet motion, delicate yet purposeful, existing alongside the stillness of the plain. The camels stirred slightly, shifting positions, their soft grunts punctuating the night. One nudged another gently, and it was as if their subtle communication reminded the caravan that they too were participants in this ongoing journey. Aaron reached out to stroke the nearest camel's neck, feeling the warmth beneath his hand. The animal exhaled softly, a steady, calming rhythm that seemed almost to synchronize with his own heartbeat. The moment held a quiet intimacy, a gentle connection across species and time. The plain stretched endlessly beyond the camp, its contours softened by the night. Shadows lengthened and merged into one another, creating shapes that were familiar and yet new with each passing glance. Aaron's thoughts meandered along these contours, imagining the next day's trek, sun warming the stones, wind lifting the silk, camels plodding steadily across the gentle rises. Each imagined step felt reassuringly solid, a promise that the journey, though long, was guided by rhythm, attention, and the patience of those who had travelled before Jalan returned to the fire's remnants, stirring the embers to send a faint warmth and glow outward. He sat quietly, sipping the last of his tea, eyes lifted toward the stars. "The road offers what we are ready to notice," he said. "Some travellers see only dust and heat. Others notice the patterns, the stories, the quiet lessons between steps." Aaron nodded slowly. The lesson was clear. Every movement, every breath, every small gesture of care contributed to the journey in ways that could only be appreciated in reflection. The night air shifted again, brushing across faces and silk alike. Crickets and small creatures stirred in the grass, producing a soft, continuous murmur that blended seamlessly with the whispering wind. It became a lullaby of the land itself, and Aaron let his mind drift with it, each thought dissolving gently into the next. The road had become more than a path of trade. It was a corridor of quiet wonder, stitched together with moments of attentiveness, kindness, and small humour. As Aaron settled into his resting position, the warmth of the silk beneath him, the soft sighs of the camels, and the flickering starlight above all combined into a cocoon of calm. He let the rhythm of the night guide him toward rest, allowing the quiet hum of the Silk Road, the steady march of time, the shimmer of textiles, the patient watching of stars, to carry him softly into sleep. Tomorrow, the journey would continue, but tonight belonged entirely to peace, observation, and the gentle unfolding of a world both ancient and alive. The night deepened further, and the plain became a soft mosaic of shadows and moonlight. Stars shimmered overhead, scattered like fine dust across indigo skies, and the wind carried a cool hush through the camp. The camels shifted gently in their resting positions, low murmurs escaping their throats, as if they were telling stories only they could understand. Aaron lay against a neatly folded bolt of silk, feeling the subtle warmth of the day lingering in his muscles, each breath syncing with the rhythm of the animals around him. Jalen moved quietly among the resting camels, adjusting packs, brushing stray grains of sand from the silk, and checking straps with calm, deliberate motions. Even the smallest misstep, he said softly, can grow into larger troubles if we ignore it. The road rewards attention. Aaron nodded, his mind tracing the line of the path ahead, imagining the careful steps required to maintain not just the caravan's pace, but the balance of safety, patience, and gentle observation. The moon rose slowly, casting silver highlights across the folds of silk. Each bolt shimmered faintly, the colours muted but alive, as though reflecting not just light, but history itself. Aaron's thoughts wandered to the distant cities where these fabrics were born, the looms humming, hands moving with precision, merchants bargaining in marketplaces filled with light and laughter. He imagined the laughter of children chasing one another between stalls, the soft chatter of elders, the scent of spices and bread. Life unfolding quietly, persistently, far from the desert night. Somehow, all of it converged here, in this caravan, on this ancient road. The gentle murmur of the desert grew more pronounced. Crickets called softly, the rustle of night-blooming herbs blended with distant waves of wind, and the camel's steady breathing became a comforting, almost musical backdrop. One shifted closer to another, nudging gently, and Aaron traced a finger along the nearest camel's neck, feeling warmth and reassurance beneath his palm. The animal exhaled slowly, as if acknowledging both the journey and its temporary pause, a gentle rhythm syncing with the night itself. Far to the east, a ridge caught a faint glow from the moonlight, creating shadows that curved and stretched with the land. Aaron let his eyes follow the contours, imagining future travels. Soft dunes giving way to jagged cliffs, narrow passes widening into sunlit valleys, villages appearing like scattered gems. Each imagined step brought a quiet joy, a sense of order and continuity in the long, patient stretch of the Silk Road. The journey had its tensions, yes, but here, in these hours of night, the road was a gentle companion. Jalun returned to the small fire, stirring embers until they glowed faintly once more. He lifted his teacup, the steam rising in gentle swirls that mirrored the drifting dust of the day. "The road gives what we notice," he said quietly. "Some see hardship, others see patterns, rhythm, and the subtleties that make travel a lesson." Aaron sipped his tea, feeling warmth spread through him, carrying a sense of calm that contrasted with the day's earlier small anxieties. The robbers, the heat, the distant hills, all were part of the story, and yet the night rendered them distant, almost like echoes of someone else's journey. The camels murmured again, stretching slightly, shifting weight as they settled back down. Aaron adjusted his scarf, wrapping it loosely around his shoulders. He noticed how the silk shimmered under the faint moonlight, reflecting 1,000 tiny, quiet stories. The journey from loom to caravan, the care of hands long gone, and the delicate balance of trade and trust that had brought them here. Even the gentle night wind seemed to acknowledge it, lifting the fabric and letting it float briefly before it fell again into place. Time seemed to stretch, the world holding its breath in the soft hush of night. Aaron let his eyes close slowly, the rhythm of the desert, the camels, the flickering embers, and the whispering wind guiding him. The Silk Road, ancient and patient, held all of this together. Tension and release, light and shadow, history and presence. The journey would continue at dawn, but for now, the caravan rested, embraced by the gentle certainty of night. Each heartbeat in quiet harmony with the road itself. The first hints of dawn stretched along the horizon, pale streaks of gold and rose brushing the sky with quiet insistence. The night had softened the land, wrapping it in velvet shadows, but now the desert began to stir again, gentle winds brushing across dunes, carrying faint scents of distant herbs and warmed earth. Camels stirred, stretching legs and necks, low grunts escaping their throats as they prepared to rise. Aaron lifted his head, brushing dust from his scarf, feeling the soft tension of anticipation in his muscles. Today's journey would resume, carrying the caravan further along the ancient ribbon of the Silk Road. Jalun moved among the animals with practiced care, adjusting straps and checking loads, his motions deliberate but calm. "We travel early," he murmured. "Before the sun climbs too high, the plains will welcome us, but we must honor their rhythm." Aaron nodded, appreciating the quiet wisdom in the statement. There was a subtle intensity in the morning's preparation, a concentrated focus that made even the familiar ritual of rising feel slightly heightened, almost electric in its calm purpose. The camels were coaxed upright, their hooves stirring small clouds of dust that floated like suspended gold in the morning light. Each bolt of silk shimmered as it shifted with the animal's movements, colours awakening from the muted hues of night into brighter, warmer tones. Aaron touched a folded bolt, feeling its smooth surface and remembering the weaver's hands that had shaped it. The long journey that had brought it this far. The silk seemed to carry the memory of each step. A tactile echo of countless miles travelled across rock, sand, and sky. Ahead, the desert opened into a gentle valley. The air was alive with faint sounds, the soft clink of camel harnesses, distant bird calls, and the wind brushing against the sand in tiny waves. Jalun's eyes scanned the horizon, alert but calm, noting every shadow, every subtle movement of the land. "Stay aware," he said softly. "Even a peaceful morning can surprise you." Aaron felt the rising intensity in the air. Not fear, but the sharp edge of readiness. A gentle reminder that the road always demanded attention, even when it appeared serene. The caravan began its slow, steady march, camels plodding with rhythmic precision. The silk caught sunlight in a soft glow, rippling gently with each step. Dust rose in delicate spirals around their feet, momentarily catching the light and giving the illusion of tiny golden sparks floating along the path. Aaron's eyes traced the horizon, imagining distant towns awaiting merchants' arrival, markets bustling with life, hands brushing against silk, children chasing one another in fleeting games, and elders examining fabrics with meticulous care. Each thought was a thread connecting present to past, traveller to weaver, caravan to city. Jalun's voice broke the quiet. "We approach a narrow pass," he said, tone steady but carrying a subtle charge. "The path may tighten, stones may shift, and the wind can catch us unaware. Focus on rhythm, pace, and the subtle signs of the road." Aaron adjusted his posture, letting the words settle in, feeling the calm intensity wrap around him like a familiar cloak. The caravan moved as one, each step careful, deliberate, synchronized with the terrain, with each other, with the unseen history embedded in every stone and grain of sand. As the sun rose higher, the landscape revealed its details. Jagged cliffs softened by distance, small pools of shadow between dunes, the occasional wildflower daring to grow. Where least expected, Aaron noticed the camels' movements, subtle shifts in weight, their ears flicking at distant sounds. The silk swayed gently, colours brightening, threads catching light like tiny signals sent across time. The journey demanded presence, attention, and patience, but the rewards were subtle beauty, rhythmic certainty, and the quiet thrill of moving along a road older than memory. Finally, the caravan reached a gentle crest. Below, the path stretched ahead like a ribbon of possibility, shimmering in early sunlight. The tension of preparation melted into calm satisfaction. The subtle intensity of the morning had passed without incident, leaving only awareness and quiet pride. Aaron allowed himself a deep breath, the warm air filling his lungs, the silk shimmering beside him, the camel's steady breaths harmonizing with the soft wind. The silk road awaited, patient and eternal, with camels plodding, silk rippling, and the first rays of sun illuminating distant horizons, Aaron felt the gentle power of the journey settle into his mind. Tomorrow would hold new paths, new rhythms, and new stories. But for now, there was calm, beauty, and the satisfaction of moving forward, step by careful step, along the ancient, whispering trail that had carried traders, travelers, and dreamers for countless generations.